British activists have been named as so-called co-conspirators in the trial of Jimmy Lai. He's the most prominent figure facing charges violating Beijing's national security law, which was imposed on Hong Kong in 2020. Earlier, I spoke to Mark Sabah, the director for the UK and EU for the Committee for Freedom in Hong Kong Foundation. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Let's talk about Jimmy Lai's trial. Firstly, tell me about Jimmy Lai and what he represents for people in Hong Kong.
Jimmy Lai is the epitome of the Hong Kong dream. He came across as a penniless child, worked his way through factories to becoming one of Hong Kong's best-known, most successful, richest businessmen. After 1989, when he saw the Tiananmen Square massacre, he was in a way radicalized about what the CCP does to its own citizens, and he launched a pro-democracy newspaper called Apple Daily. Apple Daily became the largest selling newspaper in Hong Kong, very pro-democracy, very free speech, pro-free speech, covered lots of protests and actions on the ground in Hong Kong, and made it very clear that the people of Hong Kong should have their own voice, should stand up for what they believe in, very strong on remembering things that the CCP tried to make people forget, like the Tiananmen Square massacre. And for doing that, he has been arrested, detained. He's been in prison for over 1,100 days, and his trial started a couple of months ago. He's already been sentenced for fraud on a ridiculous charge that he was using his office for a personal reason. And now, of course, it's the national security trial, where anyone can be tried for anything and be considered seditious or terrorism or colluding with foreign forces. And the accusations are that he orchestrated the protests of 2019 and 2020 in collusion with foreign forces. It's completely ridiculous, and it actually shows that the legal system has collapsed, that rule of law has collapsed, and that the CCP is calling all the shots in Hong Kong, and that Hong Kong is no longer a free, independent global city, but just another mainland Chinese city.
On the fourth day of Jimmy Lai's trial, several people were named as alleged co-conspirators for charges of collusion with foreign forces. Tell me who was named and what do those charges actually mean?
Well, they named a wide range of people. They named a few Americans, they named some British people, they named a former Japanese MP. In terms of the UK, they named Luke de Pulford, who is the director of IPAC, the Interparliamentary Alliance on China, which is a coalition of dozens of parliamentarians from around the world. He named Benedict Rogers, the founder of Hong Kong Watch. And he named Bill Browder, the founder of the Global Magnitsky Justice Campaign, all British citizens. So what we have now is that China is accusing or naming foreign citizens for interfering in their own politics, which, of course, none of these people had anything to do with the protests. And more than that, what essentially it's saying is that 2 million Hong Kongers who took to the streets to demand democracy, the repeal of the national security law, only did so because 5 or 6 foreigners told them to do so. That's absolutely ridiculous.
What kind of specific things have these people been accused of?
Orchestrating Western interference, funneling money, coordinating protests and so on. I mean, they've even gone as far as indicating that meetings that were had between Jimmy Lai and politicians are proof of collusion. Apparently his tweets are being used in evidence against him. He was a journalist. Of course he met foreign politicians. Of course he used Twitter and social media. Of course he put out articles and statements and so on. And of course he met activists from around the world who support democracy. But none of that in no way, shape or form indicates that these foreign people in America and the UK or Japan were involved in orchestrating and directing 2 million Hong Kongers who took to the streets to demand democracy.
And the people who've been named as alleged co-conspirators, how will this impact them?
I mean, so far what we've seen is that it's almost comical. It's almost laughable. Obviously, no one wants to be named in a court case, and it's deeply unpleasant, and there are some people who might fear for their safety. But on the whole, it's just ridiculous. Naming Mike Pence, the former vice president of America, because Jimmy Lai met him during that period, it's ridiculous. He was a high-profile newspaper owner. Of course he met senior politicians from around the world. I don't think Mike Pence is going to be sitting at his house in America terrified about the Hong Kong courts, but it's not pleasant that people are being exposed in that way as conspirators or for having committed crimes.
And freedoms in Hong Kong are being increasingly suppressed. Is this a reflection of a wider plan from Chinese Communist Party Xi Jinping, especially as he's talked about Taiwan and China being reunified?
I think that it's definitely part of a plan to bring Hong Kong to heel. I think Hong Kong showed that it is possible to be a Chinese city and free and democratic and have elections and be stable. And part of the CCP's narrative is that you need a strong leader, you can't have democracy or everything falls apart. Hong Kong proved that that is not the case. So he had to take down Jimmy Lai, he had to suppress protests. Regarding Taiwan, Taiwan again betrays the lie that a Chinese population can't be democratic, freedom-loving, and so on. They don't consider themselves part of China. There are obviously huge swathes who want good relationships with China, and why not? But the idea that Xi Jinping has said that it's inevitable that they will reunify and that it's surely coming anytime soon should actually worry democracies all over the world. He can either do it peacefully, which means you need the permission and of the Taiwanese people, in which case you need to have some sort of a referendum or vote or something, or he can do it militarily. In either case, such a takeover of Taiwan would inevitably suck in countries around the world.
Well, Mark Sabah, Director for the Committee for Freedom in Hong Kong Foundation, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.